All right, Eric, you pick somebody. We've got two that are, I would really like to talk to, and then two that are kind of okay. All right, fine. We'll take Kay from nowhere. Kay would like to discuss the assertion that atheists have faith that's made by some theists. Sounds interesting. Kay, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? I spoke last week.
Yeah. So discuss the assertion that atheists have faith.
So this is like when someone says you have to have faith to be an atheist.
Just as much faith.
Or like, yeah.
No.
Are we approaching this as like, are you a believer? Do you think that, or are we on the same side of this, kind of just looking at it?
I'm an atheist, but I'm not sure if that means that we're on the same side. I have a lot of different perspectives from other atheists.
Sure. So how do you define faith? I think that's probably going to be where we pivot the most. What is faith?
Belief without evidence.
Okay. I use the same definition. So do you think that atheism requires faith? Because we might need to just define what atheist means. But what do you think?
Not to be an atheist, but like, let's say, for instance, a Christian comes by and says, hey, how do you know you're not a brain in the back, right? That has nothing to do with my atheism, and yet it's true that he makes a good point when he says that, because I do take it on faith that I'm not a brain in a vat.
Brain in a vat. Got it. I missed what you said at first. I was like, what did Kay say? I'm trying to, yes, and there is a certain amount of leeway that we give each other. I think societally, like anyone that I'm actually honestly engaging with, I grant to them a couple of things that are we just do, like the laws of logic. Anytime I'm talking to somebody, I don't need them to justify the laws of logic to use logic, because it's circular, but in order for us to have a cogent conversation, I do. I'm going to give you the laws of logic, you give me the laws of logic, and then we go forward. And so when it comes to something like hard solipsism, this idea of a brain in a vat.
Here's where I
can't say that I don't have faith. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. V, what do you think? And then I'll actually think about it while you.
Here's what I think. I think that we operate on faith a lot in our day-to-day life for all kinds of things. I have faith that the airplane that I'm getting on this week is going to show up, and dwindling faith considering the state of the airlines right now. But, I've got faith that it's going to hold me in the air. I don't know how it works. And the only thing I have to go off of is the fact that it's never not held me in the air before, but that to an extent is belief without evidence, if we'd classify evidence.
No, you do have evidence of that.
What evidence would I have that it would do it this time?
Well, not this time, but
that's my point.
Seeing planes flying in the past is evidence that they work. So that is a little bit of evidence. That's not faith.
Well, I think that
what I'm trying to say is.
What are you trying to say, Kay?
Okay, so when a Christian says, how do you know you're not a brain in a vat, and I say, yeah, I don't, checkpoints, I immediately say, hey, the issue is not whether or not somebody has faith, is how much faith does somebody have. And I think that I came up with a pretty good way of quantifying that.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, you believe in God, right? Mm-hmm. You have a 1 in 2 chance of getting it right. I'm choosing a 50-50 here just for the sake of fairness, right?
Okay.
But there's so let's say you believe in God, there's a 1 in 2 chance of getting it right. But if you then start adding qualities about your God, like say, for instance, okay, he hates homosexuals, he doesn't want you to eat shrimp, you already tossed 2 coins, right? So the first coin was, okay, my God doesn't like homosexuals. You have a 25% chance of getting it right. But since you're a Christian, right, how many attributes have you attributed to God already, right? He's 3 in 1. He created the universe and not the universe before God.
Right. That's why I know that there are quite a few atheists, myself included, that will say that technically on the subject of a God in general, I'm agnostic. But when you get to specific gods and you start defining them in the way that you described just now, I am atheistic in that I actively say that God does not exist.
or
Correct.
Right.
or rephrasing it, I don't think that your God
Right.
exists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we're in agreement there. What else have we got?
Yeah, I can't push back either.
So then you make Christians aware, or any other religious person, that if you want to have the most chances of getting it right, just believe in God. Just don't assume anything about your God. Don't assume that He created the universe. Maybe the universe, it just popped into existence and then came God. Maybe it's many gods. Maybe it's don't assume anything, right? And that's how you take the fangs out of religions. That's how you make them not push for abortion, not push for.
Throwing
gays off of buildings.
On one level, for sure. You just described why a lot of people back in the day called themselves deists, right? They were doing exactly that. They were saying, I don't want to say I don't believe in a God, but I don't want to, believe in X God or Y God. So I'm just going to say there is a God. Does this God engage with us? We don't know. Did the God create the universe? Maybe. Like that. Okay, cool. Like I'm down to make theists into deists if, we're doing that in a non-violent, non-coercive way. But like,
well, yeah,
I agree.
It's positive for the world.
But like what? Okay, so how does that happen? Like, I guess my next question is, I agree with you. That would be, in my worldview, better for the world. But like, now what?
Well, you're just trying to quantify faith and just let them know that, hey, you have less chances of getting it right than the next guy who is a deist.
Okay.
And it's a lot harder to turn them into atheists. You were saying something? Sorry.
I see what you're saying. You're being pragmatic. So you're saying it's easier to make someone into a deist than it is to make them into an atheist. So maybe just focus on making deists instead.
Honestly, Kay, I think that you are way more optimistic than I am. I am way too jaded to take that approach. I was talking to V earlier about how many people are, themselves Don Quixote de la Mancha tilting at windmills. How many people are not willing to grant that those things are separable, that those qualities and traits are individually, countable, that they all have to go together. In fact, when I've tried that approach, because I have tried that, I mean, we've done this for years. When I've tried that approach, what I got was the Kalam cosmological argument, as said by William Lane Craig, this idea that all of those qualities are entailed, baked in, and necessary, that they are inextricable. And that is the generous portion. There are so many other people who are, no, it's not. It drives me up the wall. I wish that I could be with you, that we could grant that and like get people there. People are stupid, Kay. I think more people are too stupid to get there than not. And I
don't know. It's not stupidity. I'm not going to grant that.
Okay, stubborn. How about that?
Stubborn is better. I like stubborn more.
Yeah, but
here's the problem with this theory, in my opinion, as somebody who came from a Christian background. Your argument, Kay, to like kind of weight the scales equally and then like add assertions on either side and see which one comes out on top, makes sense if you're coming from a perspective of there is no evidence, and so now we start making claims. The problem is that Christians think there is evidence. So in order to get them to a place where those scales would actually be 50-50 in their mind, you would have to debunk all of the evidence that they bring to you. And that's kind of why we can't ever get there, because we just keep going back to debunking the evidence that they bring to prove to them that they don't have that evidence, so we can get to that 50-50 place. Do you see where the problem is there?
I mean, I guess I would ask, what is the evidence? Like, what specifically are you talking about?
Sure, Kate, look at the trees. It's
bad evidence. No,
but how do you know it's your God?
Oh, you're making me put the hat on, Kay. Why would you do that? Why are you making me put the Christian hat on? Okay, so I will
just be devil's advocate for a second.
I will be devil's advocate for a second, but not for so long that it's going to alienate people. Okay, if it gets weird, I'm going to call it and we'll cut. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Cool. So if I were putting on the Christian hat, then I would approach this from the was it the ontological argument?
Modal ontological argument?
Not modal, no.
Just ontological?
Just that in order for reality to exist, a God is required for that reality to be consistently existing. And because of that, anything in reality would be evidence for that God. And so if I held up, a mug, and I point to this mug and say, this is evidence of God, because without a God, not only would it not exist, but nothing would exist, then everything would be evidence to me.
And then I would say, fair enough, that's a possibility, but there isn't a sign that says, there isn't a sign in the sky that says, don't eat shrimp or kill homosexuals, right? And so how did you get to that conclusion? Right?
Oh.
I might agree with you that there might be a God, but you're starting to add shit on top of it, so.
Oh,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's
but then you're becoming Don Quixote there.
No, but like this is Kay, I'm curious. Were you ever a Christian, or have you been an atheist forever?
I was an atheist since I was like 8 or 9, and I didn't even know there was a word for it. I just decided that it was bullshit.
Okay.
And my first exposure to atheism, to another atheist, was when I was 12. So that happened a little bit later.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And to me, what we're doing right now is we are trying to explain what indoctrination does to somebody, because you're right. Even if we were to grant the entirety of William Lane Craig's Kalam, version of the Kalam cosmological argument that makes it into a God that is personal, that is omniscient, that is outside space and time, that is active in our universe, all of these things that William Lane Craig says the Kalam proves, even if we were to grant all of that, how we get to the God of the Bible is a gap that no apologist has been able to jump over yet, at least not to my satisfaction. And so you are absolutely correct that there is an enormous gap even between accepting there is a God and making claims that it is a specific God. And it's very hard to bridge that. Nobody has done that sufficiently. But for a Christian, it doesn't matter, because they are filling that gap in by accident. So you know how you don't actually see color on the sides of your eyes? Did you know this?
Okay.
So your rods and cones live in the middle bit of your eye. So the sides of your vision don't have color, but because your brain knows what those colors are supposed to be, it fills it in for you. So you don't actually see the colors on the sides of your vision. It's just filled in because your brain knows what's supposed to be there. And
I do see them.
Right, exactly. But that's just what your brain is telling you that you see. You don't actually have the mechanisms to see them because your rods and cones are not there. So
No, I do have the mechanisms because my brain does the extra work.
Exactly.
So even if I don't have the cones,
Exactly.
the brain still does it, so I can still see color.
Exactly. And that is what I'm trying to get at. The rods and cones are the arguments, okay? There is a God. That God is the God of the Bible.
And you're standing there going, it's black and white, damn it.
Right, because you don't have the ability to see those. But what you said is correct. You are seeing a connection there. You are seeing that blind spot because your brain has filled it in. And that is what happens with Christians, especially when they're indoctrinated from a young age. That blind spot is filled in by their brain so effectively that they don't see it as a blind spot. And so it's really, really difficult to get them to acknowledge that. So that is why these conversations feel so weird and obvious to a lot of people who maybe weren't Christians for very long. Because
No.
They're like, why aren't you seeing this blind spot? It's huge.
Yeah.
I have to clarify. When I said that I was an atheist, at a young age, that doesn't mean that I wasn't, that somebody didn't try to indoctrinate me.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I was raised in a very Catholic family, and I went to a retreat. Well, actually, they lied to me. They told me that they were going to send me to a boot camp, and I ended up going to a retreat where they told me that they would wake me up at 5 a.m, and if
you had to deal with that. That sucks.
They would put bricks in my hands, and just make me kneel in there for hours, and so yeah.
Okay.
I was a black sheep.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hug you.
No, and I definitely don't want to downplay that element at all. But what you are saying is that... Well, what I'm saying is that I don't want to say what your experience personally has been in the faith that you grew up in, but you did not believe it, so your brain did not fill in that gap. which is why the people who do believe it have a difficult time seeing that gap. And so what I'm saying ultimately here, and then we're going to have to wrap up, is that I think you're correct to view faith by matters of degree. And the more claims you make that are unsubstantiated, the less likely that thing is going to be true. I think that's a really good way to look at faith, especially when talking with like precepts. The problem is that a lot of the people that are coming to the table are not going to meet you at that place where they acknowledge that they don't have the evidence because of that blind spot that we've been talking about. So I think you're correct. It's the pragmatic element that I've got a problem with.
Do you know why they won't acknowledge the evidence that, against their beliefs?
Oh, there are lots of reasons.
Yeah.
Well, the main one is because they think that if you disprove their beliefs, that they no longer have the right to believe in God. But I'm trying to say that you can still believe in God while not making the claims. So you can still be a deist.
Yeah, well,
that's what I'm trying to sell to.
That's kind of like telling somebody who went through a really terrible breakup, oh, there are more fish in the sea. Like, it's still very emotionally painful to lose that God. And so you're going to do everything you can to not do that. Even if you do believe in a God, it's not that one. It's like, oh, don't worry, you were catfished, but the other person is still real. It's just they're not the same age or gender or name or personality that you thought. So, like, there is an emotional component as well that does play into it. But we're going to have to get on to the next call. Thank you so much for calling in, though, Kay, and feel free to call back.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add at the end of that, I didn't like the call was great. The only thing that I would add in at the end of that is that it is similar enough to a number of emails that I've gotten that have been kind of frustrating that I would want to warn Kay away from that direction. And that is the magic bullet idea. That while you may be right that a majority of people may be motivated a certain way, they're not all that way. And when you carry the assumption in, it can really be damaging during the conversation, which is why it's so important not to assume that they're motivated for the reasons that you think that they're motivated, but to ask them first, work through that together, and then make that, that leap once it's justified. Because when it happens beforehand, you just look like you're talking at them, and it's so hard to move forward after making that mistake. And I just want to warn you against that. But otherwise,
if you do have a foolproof way to get theists to admit that they have no evidence and start from there, like, tell us. That sounds like an awesome thing to have in your back pocket. It's just
so you can tell V. I've read way too many people thinking they've got the magic bullet argument too. I'm not going to engage because nope.
All right.
I'm done.